Hey guys, it's BlockchainBrad, and today we're talking about the very top of blockchain in the sense of a project and startup called Top Network. Now, to lead this today, we have the CEO in the hot seat. His name is Steve Wei. Steve, thank you very much for being on the channel today.
Brad, thank you for your introduction. My name is Steve, and I'm the CEO and co-founder of Top Network, a blockchain project.
Absolutely. Now, we're going to explore this in detail in a moment, but Steve, there's no one better to really extrapolate and tell us more about a project than the CEO, but we'd also want to hear about you, and your background. Can you tell us why you are the right person to lead this project of Top Network? What have you done?
So let me introduce myself first and my experience and background. So my background is always in the communication industry, internet communication, and also my team. And I have been in the communication for a very, very long time, 23 years. And I was the very earliest employee of WebEx. WebEx was a very successful company in Silicon Valley. And it was acquired by Cisco on 2007 for $3.7 billion, I think. Yeah. But I left the WebEx before the company was acquired on 2004. I left the WebEx and started my own company. The company was doing two businesses. One business is a video conference for enterprise, and another business is a virtual classroom, e-learning. People, students and the teacher can be interactive in the classroom. And both businesses were doing very well. And because the technology is good, the team is good, and the Huawei acquired the company. And Huawei is
now, can we talk about that, Steve, in the sense of dollar value? My understanding is that all of the expertise you brought into the communications and service industry is very significant. But I also have heard that from a financial standpoint, these are very large companies that you've been associated with. Can you talk us through just how big these companies were that you worked with and that you led?
Yes, so my own company, WebEx was a bigger company, and obviously, it's a larger company. And my own company, the second one I started, the company name is Sunwave. So we have around like 130 employees, something like that, and annual revenue, I think, is around 10 million. Yeah, and the company was doing pretty good at that time, back to more than 10 years ago. Yeah, and around that time, bandwidth still was not good enough. Otherwise, the business will be much better.
Right.
Video conference is all about bandwidth.
Right. Well, let's talk about that now in the context of what you're creating. Now, you say on the website, your team, that you're the world's first decentralized open communications network that's using blockchain 4.0. Now, we've heard iterations of 3.0 before. Can you please tell us exactly what Top Network stands for now and how you can make that claim of being the world's first open communications network?
Brad, that's a very good question. The current blockchain platform is not designed for business. So people say, okay, Bitcoin is version 1, Ethereum is version 2, EOS is version 3, right? But however, those platforms is still designed for financial settlement, not designed for real-world business. In real-world business, there are several things. First of all, the business logic is very complicated. And secondly, the volume of transaction is usually very, very large. And so we need a new architecture to move real-world business to blockchain. And then we call the blockchain 4.0. It's all about the business.
Right. So just to clarify, I don't mean to interrupt, but it's just for everyone, including myself, to understand this clearly. The 4.0 you're saying represents the enterprise value and the institutional and business value, in that you are going to literally, in your argument, bring in real context and real business in via the blockchain. Is that correct?
Oh, yes. Yeah. Blockchain is not about financial, right? That's one application. I think the most important that we can move business on blockchain, and especially large business, not a small thing. And so we need to redesign the blockchain platform. Today's platform is limited.
Okay.
So that we call it 4.0.
Okay, so you've made that very clear that you're very focused on business. But can you talk us now through the decentralized platform that you want to be, and that is specifically the world's first for communication networks. How can you make that claim, and what do you mean by the world's first communication network?
So today's communication network is owned either by telecom phone companies, right, or as organization like my previous company, they own a network. They deploy the servers, they connect the fiber optical, and everything is controlled by organization. However, in the future, I think we need a communication network is not owned by someone or some organization, and this network can support. Any application can tap into this network, and with a low cost and secure, and nobody controls that. That means people have free of communication. Freedom of communication or freedom of speech. So far, right now, we know, most of the network are controlled by somebody, and freedom is limited.
Right. Well, let's explore this a bit more. Now, what I'm hearing from you is you're arguing for the need of a decentralized network. So I want to talk to you about the counterparts. Give us some examples very clearly of centralized communication networks that exist, and tell us how you're going to be different, and if not better, by design.
So communication by nature, it could be designed a distributed architecture, because most of the time communication is stateless. Traffic goes through a server. That's it. The server doesn't need to save the data, right?
Right.
So by nature, a communication network can be decentralized, and the reason right now there is no decentralized network because people control it. And
can you give us some examples, though, Steve? What are some of these examples of these centralized controlled networks, these closed systems?
Actually, today every network is closed. For example, say AT&T has a network, right? They control everything. Yeah, and but that's the telco side. For example, internet world. Say let's get WeChat and WhatsApp, right? Facebook. They all have their own network, and they run their application on top of that network. And for us,
you want to be the complete counterpart to that, flipping that on its head and being this decentralized version of that. But I want to explore the communication in a more broader sense. What do you mean specifically by saying you're a communication network? How far is that in terms of reach? What specific communications? I ask you this because on your website you have a phone that's key to the very front of your website design. So what do you mean by communication network specifically for Top Network?
Yeah, so we need to go to the detail. What kind of service it can provide, right? And the network we are implemented, not that we are constructed. We are implemented. It can provide, I would say, all the communication service app need. For example, messenger service, calling service, and the VPN service, and the CDN service, streaming service, and even IoT device data sharing service. So we build a lot of communication service in the one platform, and any application that need a communication service, they can tap into the network by the API or SDK. So they no longer need to build their own servers and deploy the network. That's a dirty job, and it's a very high cost.
I see. So to create something like this, of this magnitude, with all these different elements that you just mentioned, no doubt that's taken you a great deal of time to build and a very expert team. Can you talk us through the first part of this roadmap as you've begun up until now, and also in the context of your team? How have you built your team to achieve these things that have led up till this point in time, where you have what you've established?
So let me introduce why we are doing this, and then we can connect the dots.
Okay. Sure.
Yeah. my current company, so that's my third company in communication business, and we own several communication apps today. One is name is Dingtone, another is Cover Me, and the last one is Sky VPN. It's a VPN app. So all the three communication apps combined, we have 50 million users, and we have a very large traffic. For example, the VPN app, every day we are consume, I think, around 300 terabyte data every day.
I see.
So it's a very large traffic, and
so already you have 50 million users streaming into your services that are pre-blockchain.
No, right now, so the three apps running on the network owned by us. So that's still centralized, right? By us.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
Pre-blockchain, meaning before you started to consider blockchain as a technology, you had these services, these applications, and these businesses established with a huge audience, a huge user network.
Yes, you're right. Yeah. So
you're bringing them in across to the top network.
And the three communication apps I mentioned, they are actually sharing a same communication layer, and beyond the layer, the three different user database, business logic, billing, and so the underlying layer is the same, and that layer was already designed in a distributed architecture. We designed this 6 years ago, late 2012. So from the beginning, it was a distributed architecture, and so that's the reason why we can quickly move our own network. I mean, our own stuff to the community to become a blockchain tokenized platform. I mean, the network, and as a result, the three apps can move to the top network in transparent way. Those users may not even realize that they are already on blockchain from the beginning.
Right.
Yeah.
So clearly you're utilizing already existent user base to really develop your new top network project and essentially your network. Now I want to talk to you in the context of building this upon perhaps those who may not know much about blockchain. What specifically is the point of your blockchain design? What's your utility as a token? Why do you need a token?
Okay. So first of all, the network is owned by the community, right? Means constructed by the community. So everybody can contribute a server or computer to the network and contribute the bandwidth, and but they need the rewards, right, for their job. They contribute the resource, and there need to be a fair way to reward them. And that's what the blockchain can do because it has a consensus. So for example, you contribute a server to the network, and that server, say that server enabled 1 gigabyte traffic, and the system need to reward you several tokens, for example, 10 tokens, that's your reward. And so this whole process is a tokenized process, and the nodes are rewarded based on the contribution, and the contribution is recorded on the blockchain. So it's fair and transparent. Everybody can know the information from the blockchain.
I see. So obviously you've made sure that there are rewards for people. And can you talk us through some examples? So say, for example, someone who's listening right now wanted to interact and use this communication network, how can they be incentivized? Give us some really clear use cases for them to benefit using Top Network and not some other network.
Okay, let's use a VPN as an example. So we have a lot of VPN users, and some of them are using computer, for example, Windows or Mac. And in our application, there is an option, say, contribute to the network. And if you enable that option, you will become a node of the top network automatically. You become a node. Of course, this is an opt-in process. We don't do automatically. So you need to say, I want to contribute to the network.
Right.
Then you become a node, and the system may choose you to serve another VPN user. For example, Brad, you are using a VPN session, and the system assigns that computer as the node of your VPN session. And let's say you use the 500 megabyte data for the VPN session, and that node does the job. And the blockchain system calculates the contribution. Okay, that's 500 megabyte. And we need to reward that node 5 token. So, yeah, so, and as I mentioned, that node actually belongs to a user, right? And this user receives the 5 tokens, and it's real money because you can sell the token on exchange. Yeah.
Very interesting. So obviously you really are genuinely regarding people as nodes and thus rewarding them in kind as they use the network more. Now I want to talk to you about looking further beyond this in terms of the token metrics themselves. Now many people obviously need this information. It's essential that transparency be paramount in this day and age when we see the markets plummeting right now. So can you tell us exactly what your plan is to fundraise? I prefer that term than ICO because the ICO is really just a mechanism for fundraising, but holistically, how are you going to bring capital into your project to keep it going?
Oh, that's a very good question. So let me talk one by one. First of all, let's talk about the token distribution because many people will care about that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And if we look at our token distribution metrics, and you will find our distribution is designed for long-term success of the project.
Right.
And for example, the team, advisor, and early contributor, they have a very, very long lockup period. Yeah. So let me go to the detail.
That'd be great.
Yeah. So in our token distribution, 80% goes to mining.
Sorry,
so those tokens
that we just slightly cut out. How much of that was for mining?
38%.
38. Okay.
Yeah, goes to mining in 20 years. So the mining schedule is very close to Bitcoin. Every 4 years is half. And that's the mining part. And the 15%.
Basically, the scarcity increases over time in terms of that which is mined. And also, before we continue, can we just reiterate how long was that vesting period for those parties you mentioned, the team and the early investors? How long was that period?
Okay, so it's pretty long. And let me go to so the team and the foundation advisor, they have 1 year lockup cliff, then linear vest in 24 months.
Okay, well that's not so long, Steve. That's not so long because we've seen other examples where it's been 3 or 4 years. So that's actually to use your words, it's
normal.
Well, I'm not going to use those terms, but it's not as long as what we've seen traditionally in recent times. Now let's talk about perhaps the other part of it, and that is the metrics themselves in terms of your lockup or the other part, strategic investors, or even the private pre-sale. Let's really explore also your raise, the really big things that people need to know to understand your presentation of value.
Yeah. So let me continue the lockup. So we got because we already raised 2 rounds. The first the seed round and the second cornerstone round. For the seed round, we got 1 year lockup for the investors, and for the cornerstone round, the lockup is a 6 months cliff, and then vest in 3 months. So you can see, the early investors, they cannot sell a single token in the beginning.
Right. Is that for everybody? Is that for everyone, every investor who's involved? Is there anyone at all, Steve, that can access this token immediately and sell it?
So we are very transparent, and we treat everybody fairly. So everybody has the same conditions, and there's no specific exceptions. Every investor got the same term.
Right. And I ask you this because we have seen other projects do this differently. Whether or not that be acceptable or not is up to the people to decide. But we certainly have seen examples of differentiation happen at the very early stages, whether that be seed, whether that be cornerstone or private sales and pre-sales. Certainly, you know, what we're hearing from some of the more tech-driven projects is that they are taking the approach of being equitable, of being fair, of allowing for everyone to have open and transparent access to this to one set value, one set amount. Is that what you're doing?
Yes. You know, Brad. First of all, you know, my core idea is we need to protect the retail investors and the grassroots people, right?
And
that's the key.
How do you do that using these kind of metrics? Can you explain that?
Yeah. So, you know, as I said, you know, first of all, you know, the investors, of course, they got a discount, but they need a long lockup period, and they needed to stick with us. I mean, the team. So help us to build the project to be successful. And so retail investors, they don't get a discount, but you know, they are free to trade, right? And and we want to make sure everything is transparent.
I appreciate that. Now, can you talk us through the raise? How much are you trying to raise throughout your fundraising process? And can you talk us through the different parts? So how much are you raising for your seed, cornerstone, and how much for the private, the pre-sale, and how much for, you know, if you are in fact doing anything at all for the crowd sale, and we will discuss that. So talk us through the steps, what you're raising.
Okay, so our token price is pegged to ETH, not USD. So if we use the US dollar, I mean, the hard cap is changing every day, especially ETH is going down every day.
Right.
And so we are using ETH as a price. And overall, our hard cap is, I think it's about 56,000 ETH. That's the amount that we want to raise. I mean, combine the public sale, private sale, and the cornerstone sale together.
So can I ask you this sincerely? How can you justify that kind of figure? Every single person who hears that number will want to know that, Steve. So why that amount? I won't be saying it's too much or too little. I just want to hear from you your reasoning for what you need that money for.
That's a good question. So, you know, first of all, you know, this project has a serious technology and a large team and a large user base, especially. That's very important, right? So, I have to proudly say we deserve a certain amount of valuation. Because
I'm sorry to interrupt, but what I'm saying is that if you go to any other traditional business, and you know this because of your expertise and your experience in business, there's always a business plan put forward as they start. So have you done something like that where you've worked out a budget and allocated the money you need to raise this for specific purposes? And if you have, what are they?
So the money we are raising, I think half of them will be used for development. The reason we don't need a large amount of money on R&D is because, as I mentioned, you know, we already have 3 apps, and these 3 apps generate a lot of revenue and profit, and they can already, you know, have a lot of developers. So that's the benefit of this project. It's a very sustainable model.
Right. So you've already got money coming in, and that'll continue to flow in as you build out this network.
Yes. For example, this year we will have around $15 million revenue, and the profit would be, I think, 5 million something, somewhere around $5 million profit. So this organization is very healthy. And they are already doing the job. I mean, the decentralized network stuff. However, you know, this project, the top project, that includes some other things, like we are also building a public blockchain platform. That's not the part of the network side. And this part, we need additional resource to do that. Not too much, but we need a certain people, right, doing this. Yeah, so we will spend some money on this R&D side, and we also will spend a lot of budget on building the ecosystem. I mean, the marketing side.
Right.
I think that's the most important part, because you need to attract the
Absolutely.
third-party developer.
Especially in the market we're seeing today. Obviously, for you to be known in this space, you need to, and you've made it clear that this aspect of blockchain is really quite new to the overall network, and that's where much of the money is being spent. So I do appreciate that. Now, I want to ask you, will you be providing transparent information about expenditure, about the way in which you go about your business expenditure and business dealings, and will people be able to see this in some way, shape, or form?
Yes. Yes, I think transparency is number one in the blockchain world, because every information is already on blockchain. So an organization, we also need to be transparent, and for example, how much money we are spending, and what the people we are using. Yeah. So the foundation, will publish all those kind of expense. And we will release this information monthly. Yeah. And
Well, we really appreciate that, because we need, again, just that continuation of transparency as a given. Now, if we could talk about your partnerships as well, Steve, because obviously to secure the kind of credibility and, to secure the kind of interest that you need to build this out, you need support. Talk us through the reasoning of the current strategic investors that you do have, and what they bring in terms of not just money, but do they bring specific skill sets and value add that are really going to support your plan?
So my current investor, we listed on website. I mean, institution. We also have some individual investor. We didn't list them, but they are also very, very helpful, because those people and the institution are very connected. So besides the money, they are introducing a lot of resources to us. For example, marketing resource and third-party developers. So overall, those institutions are very, very helpful, and they are also very famous. For example, like DHVC, NGC, and LD Capital, or 分布式. So
you've got some very big names in there for sure, and they are all very much VC related, crypto VC. But I always like to ask, do you have any beyond that? Do you have any traditional investors? Do you have any traditional businesses that have shown that they're willing to put their money where their mouth is to support you?
Yeah, and my cornerstone investor mostly are token fund, and but if you look at my seed round investor, most of them, actually 100% of them are in traditional world, and these people are very powerful. Actually, 5 of the my seed investors, there are 3 people actually are billionaire. So these people are well connected, and
let me just get this straight. So your seed investor, 5 of them are very powerful, 3 of them are billionaires. Can you tell us exactly what businesses they represent, or more so what industries these billionaires represent?
Okay. So let me introduce one guy. So this guy's name is Gonghong Jia. He is the highest return investor in the whole world, because he invests in company. The company would be our partner in the future. So that company is doing video surveillance chip and equipment. And so Gonghong Jia invested this company, I think 15 years ago, with $300,000, I think. And today, that stake was $10 billion. So he's a pretty rich guy. And and you see that company, the company he invests, that company is doing a lot of video stuff, video surveillance, and it's and a lot of IoT devices, for example, camera, and those devices, as we mentioned in the white paper, they need a communication network to send the traffic. I mean, especially the video signal is needed.
Very interesting, because not only is it the billionaire has invested, but this billionaire definitely, from what you're saying, aligns with what you can do to have this kind of partnership for real world contexts. It's not not just about giving money. That's why I'm asking you about these people, because it's so far beyond the VCs giving you money for their own interests. This is really cool, but mutually beneficial one.
I totally agree. You know, money actually is becoming cheaper and cheaper, and the resource is more expensive today.
Right. And let's talk about the other two then, Steve. The other two that you have. Why are they so valuable in terms of assets they bring to the table?
Excuse me?
So those two billionaires, there's other two you mentioned. Now, I want to talk to you about why they are valuable beyond their money. What do they bring to the table that's going to help this top network really flourish?
So as I mentioned, for example, you know, the Gong Hongjia, this gentleman can connect the company. He invests with us, and that company has huge requirements for communication. I mean, you know, the video devices they are producing, and as I mentioned, we are building a communication network, right? So we can partner with them, and without this kind of connection, it's really difficult to get into that partnership.
I see. Well, let's talk about the other two, as we said. Who are the other two billionaires, and what do they do, and why do they matter?
Okay, so another guy is the co-founder of Alibaba.
Okay, so the co-founder of Alibaba. That's one of the largest companies on earth.
Yes. So as you can see, you know, they have so many things that can help us.
So how did you, if you don't mind if I ask, how did you secure that kind of investment? I mean, do you know people at that level on a consistent basis from your experience and your business, background?
Okay, so you know, we have a site in China, in Hangzhou, a beautiful city. We got around 100 employees there. We also have another 20 employees in another city, Nanjing. But we got mostly employees in Hangzhou, and I stay half a year in Hangzhou. And the 3 billionaires I mentioned, they are all in Hangzhou. And I happen to know them. Some of them for a very long time, you know, those people are interconnected.
Right. Well, obviously you are a very connected man, and you're building a network of your own for communications. Now, just talk us through quite briefly the 2 value points for those other billionaires that are coming on board. What do they do, and what they're going to bring?
So other people, for example, the Alibaba co-founder, they introduced me a lot of token fund.
I see.
Because he is the LP of many token funds.
Yes, well, that's obviously beneficial. But beyond that, I mean, what's the vision with Alibaba? Can we talk through that? What do you want to do with Alibaba?
So, you know, Alibaba has Ali Yun, so it's basically like AWS, right?
The Ali Cloud translates.
And but you know, they only do computing cloud service. They don't have a communication cloud service, and there is a chance we can, you know, construct a partnership. As we build the communication network and provide the cloud communication service, I think in the end we may have a partnership and cross sell.
Are you currently discussing that now with anyone in the core team of Alibaba?
You mean my current team member?
Yeah, is anyone from your team discussing with Ali Jung and the Ali Cloud on behalf of Alibaba about the possibilities now for the collaborations?
No, not right now. It's too early, and we need to finish build the whole thing before we talk to outside. And that's not enough, actually.
I see.
We need to move.
It sounds like you're very optimistic that it can happen, though.
Oh, of course, obviously, yeah. And because, you know, the network will be very unique in the whole world.
Absolutely, and that explains more of that first, your claim of being first in the sense of being decentralized in this way. Now, can we talk about that third party as well, that third billionaire? What is that person doing to bring more value to the network?
Okay, so this guy is a traditional VC. He's running a VC. So it's a very successful VC, and he is introducing people to me. For example, high-end people. We need For example, recently I got a VP, and he's a very capable people, and they introduced that. So they are doing help in different ways. Some of in found some people.
Sure. So basically, it's non-crypto money, and you're bringing that in via a very well-connected and very wealthy member of your team, essentially, as the seed investor. So it's interesting to see that you've already, from the outset, set up a framework where you can access traditional funds, not just crypto funds. Now, let's talk about your team for a moment. How big is your team? What are the real skills and credentials of your team generally to really evidence that they've got what it takes?
So we have 5 co-founders, and the co-founders all live in California. We live here for a very long time, actually. And but we have in China, we have 120 employees, and most of them are developers. So about 80% are developers. So I have around 100 developers. It's a pretty good quality people, actually.
That's a lot of people to have already in the phase that you're in now, because I can imagine that you're planning on building this to a much larger scale as well.
Yes. And my company, is a very technology-centric company, and we build a good product, and we are not good at marketing, but we are good at building product.
I see. Well, I'm glad you raised that, because that could be a problem if that isn't addressed, because that quite simply with blockchain is that it is all sentiment driven. Have you also set up people in your team for the future of media, for the value of engaging with the community?
Yes, so technology and marketing are both very important, especially in blockchain world, because you need the people know your project, and you need the people understand your project.
Sure. So what are you doing about that in terms of building out your team?
So we got a marketing team. As I mentioned, our current business, we already have 50 million users. So we have, of course, have a very good marketing team, and that's the reason they can build so many users, right? And and we converted the team into the blockchain world. So we are launching marketing for our blockchain project right now. But overall, this company is a very technology centric. As I mentioned, 80% of people are developers.
Sure. And so obviously the fundamental value and the skill set is engineering, is all of the technological requirements to build this out. But I guess the thing I wanted to talk to you now about is the future of Top Network itself. What are the fundamental features technologically that really set you apart, firstly, and then what is the plan to do with them? What's your vision? So let's go with technological features that set you apart, just in a nutshell, and then we'll move across to talk about what the vision is from this point forward.
Our project includes 2 things. So one is the decentralized communication network, and another part is the public blockchain platform. So they are actually 2 separate things. And let me talk about the top network first. That's the decentralized communication. I think that this part is all about the knowledge and the experience, not about the specific technical technology. As I mentioned, we are doing the communication business for very, very long. It's over 20 years history. So we know so many details about the communication industry, and there's a small piece is putting together, and then it become an advantage.
Right. And, but respectfully though, what are some of the key things in your design that really set you apart? Because obviously you need to really evidence that and let people know what makes you technologically unique, so that you really have the engine firing to do it.
Okay. Let me give you one example. This is a very technical example. For example, say first of all, we build the network on a public internet. Public internet means you really don't know, especially the network if owned by the community, you really don't have idea what is the network condition each node has, right? Some node has very bad bandwidth, and some node maybe have very good bandwidth. But in a very, very flat, pure P2P flat network doesn't work. And actually, the network should be organized into different layers. And in a centralized model, you can manually configure the network into different layers. For example, a basic layer and a super node layer, different layer. However, in decentralized world, you need to figure out a way to automatically, let's say, for example, put this 100 nodes into a super node layer, and that remaining 1,000 layer into the basic network layer. And the reason you need a super node layer, we call it actually advanced node, not a super node. Super node is not a good name. Advanced node. The reason is you need a advanced layer, and this layer fit to the internet backbone, and those nodes can work as an intermediate router and bridge communication. Let me give you an example, very detailed example. For example, if you have a node in China and have another node in India, so if the China node connect to the India node directly, the communication is very, very bad, because the direct connection between China and India is so bad. However, if you found an intermediate node in Singapore or even Australia,
and the Sydney or Brisbane or the Gold Coast,
and if the China node goes to the Singapore node first, and also the India node goes to connected to the Singapore node, and use the Singapore node as the intermediate router, then traffic between the China node and the India node become very, very good. Bandwidth is good. The packet loss is very, very small. So the key question is, how do you find a node? I mean, the node has to be in Singapore, right? How do you find that? Why it should be in Singapore?
So
you see.
So what you're saying is that you basically connect the dots when the dots don't want to directly connect. You'll create a third dot to make it an access point, as you said, intermediary, so that you can literally light the network up for better access. Is that
yes? So for this, you need a lot of knowledge, and you need a very good technology, because it should be done automatically, not a human manual configure.
Right. Now let's move. Let's discuss the situational geographics for a moment with Silicon Valley in the hot seat. Now that is a credible zone in many respects in comparison to some of the sort of more hype-driven projects we've seen come out of China. How confident are you that you are genuinely tech-driven, and thus really have the potential to create this for the real world? How can you let the people know that you really think this can actually come to fruition?
Sorry, Brad, I didn't get it. So you mean
how can you really send a message forth? I mean, obviously, there's so much theory inbound in the beginnings of blockchain startups, but with all the things we discussed of your past, we're now talking of the future, your vision. Can we talk about that? How can you instill confidence in the listener right now that you really can build this?
Actually, today, the blockchain industry is the biggest problem. Every blockchain doesn't have real business. I mean, real transaction, and everybody is claiming, "Hey, my platform has a very high TPS. It's super good." And hey, you come here to build a D app on top of my platform. So that's what everybody is doing today. And I'm not saying those blockchain platform is a bad design or bad technology. They are doing pretty well. However, they really cannot prove the technology is good, because you don't have business there, right? And for us, and so we have a very unique situation here, very unique advantage here. We have the 50 million users, and this user base will move to the blockchain in the top platform, and they represent a huge volume transactions. So look, if my platform, I mean the top network and the public blockchain we build can handle this volume very well, then we will become the first one to support a larger DAU. I would say we will become the biggest DAU in blockchain world.
I see.
Next year, So
Right.
that's a beautiful proof. People say, hey, top has, say, for example, has a 10 million DAU on the blockchain platform. That's number one. So that's better than anything we claim. You know,
So
if
you're most excited about the real fact that you have the ability to transition your current user base into something that's blockchain related and have that incentivized so that people can build on and beyond for a new decentralized communications network that could potentially really revolutionize the space. So it's a big deal, and the reason why is because you're saying next year. Talk us through how you can achieve that next year.
Okay, so we started develop the top network from last October, and the public blockchain started from this February. So we already have done a lot of work, development work. Yeah, and if we check our website for the public blockchain, we already got a testnet, private testnet. And in single shot, we already got 2,000 TPS. It's a very reasonable, good number now. And at the end of this year, we will finish the mainnet. Implement the mainnet, and we will have a trial launch of the mainnet. And next year, I think it would be around March. We will official launch the mainnet. Yeah, we as I said, we have a lot of people are working on that. And secondly, we started the work not from now, not from last month, from last year. So it's a different than other project. You know, a lot of project, it's a new organization, so you need to raise the funding first and then start to develop. And in the beginning, the founder team spent a lot of time on fundraising and ICO. They don't have time to coding, right?
Right, and that's the biggest irony. And so that's what's interesting about you, is that you already explained that you've invested a lot of time, a lot of money. You've got significant backers, some of the most powerful on the planet, really suggesting that you have the potential via their own indicators and potential partnerships with those companies. There's so much going on for you, Steve, as the CEO of the Top Network. I want to thank you for your time today. We have run out of time, but I would love to speak with you further, if that's okay, in the future, to do updates, because quite simply, the only way in which blockchain projects are going to survive is if they have real use case, real utility. You're saying you've got the plan for it. We look forward to learning more about what is arguably the world's first decentralized open communication network, powered by blockchain 4.0, how you go in the future. But until then, is there anything you'd like to say as a final statement?
So Brad, first of all, I think we will report our status to you regularly.
Thank you very much.
I think that's a very good channel to broadcast what we are doing and what we want to achieve in the future.
Sure.
And as an overall statement, so top network and the top project is a real technology, real people is doing the real thing for real world business. And trust us, this would be the first blockchain platform will have a huge DAUs, and we can prove blockchain can enable real world business in decentralized way. And I know a lot of people are still doubting about that because currently there's no such kind of thing. But we will prove blockchain is useful and is actually valuable for real world business. Yeah,
absolutely. Well, Steve, on behalf of all those who want to know more about Top Network, thank you for your passion, for your willingness to prove your work, for your transparency, and for your vision, and the fact that you want to make something of this decentralized technology. Once again, look forward to finding out more about Top Network in the future. And until then, we sign off and look forward to discussing more in the future.
Thank you, Brad, and thank you, everybody.
You're very welcome. Take care.